Police, history, structure, and role in modern society. The concept of order. Police forces are present in the everyday lives of almost every person. We encounter them on the streets, in news reports, in films, and in historical footage. Yet behind the uniform, symbols, and legal authority lies a complex institutional system shaped by history, politics, and the social needs of society. To understand policing today, it is essential to examine how and why this institution first emerged. Throughout human history, the question of maintaining order has always been central to social organization. Without mechanisms of enforcement and control, societies inevitably face violence, chaos, and the erosion of mutual trust. The police represent the state's institutional response to the need for stability, public safety, and the consistent enforcement of shared rules. It is important to emphasize from the outset that policing is neither universal nor identical across all countries. Its structure, powers, and methods are directly influenced by political systems, cultural norms, levels of trust between citizens and authorities, and the specific historical experiences of each society. In this film, we will not focus on isolated scandals or emotionally charged judgments. Our objective is to provide a systemic understanding of policing, how it was formed, which principles underpin its operation, how it is organized in practice, and why it takes such different forms from one country to another. We will trace the development of policing from primitive forms of order maintenance to modern professional institutions. Particular attention will be given to the transition from spontaneous and often arbitrary violence to an institutionalized system of coercion that is formally regulated and subordinated to the rule of law. This film is an attempt to view the police as a social mechanism, not as an abstract embodiment of evil or an absolute force for good, but as an instrument that reflects the structure of society itself, its level of institutional maturity, and its capacity for self-regulation and legal restraint. Before the police, how order was maintained. In early societies, there were no specialized institutions dedicated to law enforcement. Social control was exercised through kinship structures, tribal elders, and systems of collective responsibility. Violations of accepted norms were not perceived as crimes against the state, but rather as threats to the family, the clan, or the wider community as a whole. In ancient cities such as Rome and Athens, the first elements of urban security began to appear. These early structures performed limited functions, including patrolling streets, suppressing disturbances, and protecting rulers or public buildings. However, they lacked institutional independence and operated solely at the discretion and command of political authority. During the Middle Ages, public order was maintained through the feudal system. Lords and city authorities employed guards to protect markets, fortifications, and trade routes. Law enforcement was highly fragmented, while the use of force was often arbitrary, personal, and closely tied to local power rather than to uniform legal standards. Punishment for crimes in this period was public and deliberately intimidating. The objective was not investigation or due process, but the visible demonstration of power and deterrence. The absence of a professional police force meant that justice depended largely on social status, wealth, or physical strength, rather than on formal procedures. As cities expanded and trade intensified, the old system proved increasingly ineffective. Urban anonymity weakened traditional forms of collective control, while economic growth demanded stable, predictable, and enforceable rules to protect commerce, property, and personal security. It was at this point that the need emerged for a new structure, permanent, professional, and subordinated to law rather than to a specific ruler. This transformation marked the beginning of the long historical path toward the creation of modern policing institutions. The birth of modern policing. Modern policing emerged in the early 19th century amid rapid industrialization. Mass migration to cities, combined with growing poverty and rising crime rates, rendered earlier forms of social control increasingly ineffective and unsuited to the new urban reality. A key role in this transformation was played by Robert Peel, who initiated the creation of the Metropolitan Police in London in 1829. This organization became the first professional, salaried, and permanently operating police service, marking a decisive break with earlier, ad hoc systems of order. Peel proposed a fundamentally new approach. The police should focus on preventing crime rather than merely punishing it after the fact. He argued that the true foundation of effective policing lay in public trust and cooperation, not in fear generated by the use of force. The so-called Peelian principles, laid the foundation for modern police ethics. These principles emphasize the minimal use of force, strict subordination to the law, and equal treatment of all citizens, regardless of status, wealth, or social position. Crucially, the new police force was institutionally separated from the military. This distinction underscored its civilian character and significantly reduced the risk of militarizing internal order and everyday law enforcement within society. The model developed in England became a reference point for police systems around the world. Although each country adapted it to local political, legal, and cultural conditions, its core ideas influenced the global evolution of modern policing. The formation of policing in different countries. North America, policing without a monarchy. In the United States, the formation of policing took place in the absence of monarchical authority and a strong centralized power. Early police structures emerged at the city and state levels rather than as a unified national system. This laid the foundation for a tradition of decentralization, in which police forces are accountable to local authorities and reflect the specific characteristics of individual communities. The United States, from night watch to professional departments. During the 19th century, American cities such as New York and Boston established permanent police departments. Their responsibilities included managing migration, controlling street crime, and responding to social unrest. Unlike the British model, American policing was from the outset closely intertwined with local politics and municipal governance. Latin America, policing as an instrument of the state. In many Latin American countries, policing developed under strong influences from colonial rule and military structures. Police forces were often viewed not as public service institutions, but as tools for maintaining state authority. This contributed to the militarization of policing functions and a weak separation between the army and internal law enforcement. East Asia, order as a moral concept. In East Asian societies, particularly in Japan, policing evolved in close connection with cultural norms and the idea of social harmony. During the Meiji reforms, the police were established as a centralized institution oriented not only toward punishment, but also toward prevention, supervision, and continuous presence in everyday social life. Japan, the preventive model. From its earliest stages, Japanese policing emphasized the prevention of offenses rather than reactive enforcement. Small neighborhood police posts enabled direct and regular contact with residents. This model reduced reliance on force and strengthened the role of the police as intermediaries between the state and the public. China and the imperial tradition. In China, the maintenance of order was historically carried out by officials of the imperial administration. Modern policing emerged in the 20th century as part of a highly centralized state apparatus. From the outset, the police were viewed as an extension of administrative authority rather than as an autonomous professional institution. Ottoman Empire and the Middle East. In the Ottoman Empire, early police structures were created to regulate urban life and commercial activity. These forces reported directly to central authorities and performed functions of surveillance, information gathering, and the suppression of disorder. Their institutional legacy significantly influenced the development of policing in Middle Eastern countries during the 20th century. Colonial territories, policing as a tool of governance. In many parts of Asia and Africa, modern police forces were established by colonial powers. Their primary purpose was not to serve local populations, but to maintain order in the interests of colonial administrations. This created a profound divide between police institutions and society, the effects of which persist to this day. France, policing as an extension of the state. In France, modern policing developed under conditions of strong centralized authority. Following the French Revolution, the maintenance of order was regarded as an exclusive function of the state. The creation of national police institutions involved strict hierarchy and direct subordination to central government bodies, distinguishing the French model from Britain's community-oriented approach. Gendarmerie as a distinct European phenomenon. The French gendarmerie became one of the earliest forms of semi-militarized policing. It combined internal security functions with military discipline. This model influenced many European countries, particularly where maintaining control over rural areas and transportation routes required a centralized, mobile, and disciplined force. Prussia and the German tradition of order. In the German states, policing developed primarily as an administrative instrument of the state. In Prussia, police institutions were closely linked to bureaucracy and the legal system. Emphasis was placed on rule compliance, discipline, and precise execution of instructions, shaping the legal culture of a unified Germany. Germany, federalism and legal constraints. After German unification, and especially following the Second World War, the policing system was fundamentally restructured. Police powers were strictly limited by law, and significant responsibility was transferred to regional authorities. This transformation reflected lessons drawn from historical abuses and strengthened judicial and constitutional oversight. Italy, a dual policing system. In Italy, the formation of policing occurred against a backdrop of political fragmentation followed by national unification. The result was the coexistence of parallel police structures, civilian police forces alongside militarized units. This arrangement reflected the need to maintain public order while simultaneously safeguarding state stability. Austria-Hungary and multinational empires. In multinational empires such as Austria-Hungary, police forces were designed to govern ethnically and culturally diverse populations. Their primary tasks included preventing unrest and ensuring loyalty to central authority. This strengthened the surveillance role of policing and its close integration with administrative governance. The Russian Empire, policing and autocracy. In the Russian Empire, policing developed as an instrument of autocratic rule. Its functions extended beyond crime control to include political surveillance, population monitoring, and suppression of opposition. This established a tradition of strong dependence on executive power within policing institutions. Eastern Europe, late institutional development. In many Eastern European countries, professional policing emerged relatively late, often only in the 20th century. Regime changes, wars, and ideological transformations strongly shaped these systems. As a result, police institutions were frequently perceived not as neutral bodies, but as components of political authority. Spain and Portugal, policing under authoritarian regimes. In Spain and Portugal, police forces operated for long periods under authoritarian regimes. This reinforced their role as instruments of political control. Only with the transition to democratic systems did policing begin to transform toward a legal, rights-based, and community-oriented service. The Scandinavian model, trust and minimalism. In Northern European countries, policing developed in close connection with the rise of the welfare state. Emphasis was placed on prevention, transparency, and cooperation with citizens. High levels of social trust enabled minimal use of force and expanded the social and mediating functions of the police. Principles of police structure. The core mission of the police as an institution. The primary mission of the police is to ensure public order and security within the framework of the law. Unlike the military, which is designed to address external threats, the police operate within society itself. Their role is not to govern citizens, but to protect the established legal order, prevent crime, respond to violations, and ensure the enforcement of judicial decisions issued by the courts. Hierarchical structure and command. Police organizations are built on a hierarchical principle, characterized by a clear vertical chain of command, from frontline officers to senior leadership. This structure is essential for coordinating actions, ensuring uniform application of the law, and enabling rapid operational decision-making. Hierarchy reduces disorder, clarifies responsibility, and allows effective control over the use of force and institutional resources. Functional police units. Within the police system, specialized units are established to perform distinct functions. Patrol divisions provide visible presence and immediate response. Investigative units are responsible for conducting criminal investigations and assembling evidence. Operational and analytical units work with intelligence, risk assessment, and the prevention of serious and organized crime, forming the backbone of strategic policing. Interagency coordination within the police. Police effectiveness depends on coordination among its various units. Patrol officers document incidents and secure scenes, investigators build evidentiary cases, and analytical services identify patterns, networks, and underlying causes. No unit operates in isolation. The police function as an integrated system in which results are achieved through sequential and cooperative action. The relationship between police and the judicial system. The police do not pass sentences or determine guilt. Their activities are subordinate to judicial authority. All collected materials are transferred to prosecutors and courts, where legal decisions are made. This division is fundamental. The police serve as an executive and investigative body, not as the final arbiter of legal responsibility or justice. Oversight and institutional constraints. To prevent abuse of power, police forces operate under continuous oversight. Supervision is exercised by prosecutors, courts, internal affairs units, and in some countries by independent civilian review bodies. These mechanisms limit arbitrariness and ensure accountability to both society and the state, preserving a balance between public security and the protection of human rights. Methods and organization of policing activity. Policing as an organized system. Police activity is organized as a continuous process encompassing prevention, response, investigation, and enforcement oversight. Responsibilities are distributed among specialized units, each performing a clearly defined role. This organizational model reduces duplication, accelerates decision-making, and ensures legal accuracy and procedural consistency in police operations. Core operational methods. The fundamental methods of policing include patrol operations, intake of public reports, initial response, evidence collection, and operational analysis. Patrol remains a central element, as visible presence deters crime and reassures the public. Response procedures follow established protocols that define priorities, permissible actions, and the sequence of officer conduct. Investigative and analytical techniques. Investigative work is based on factual documentation, evidence handling, and cooperation with forensic and technical experts. Modern police forces increasingly rely on analytical techniques such as network analysis, behavioral profiling, and crime statistics. These methods enable a shift from purely reactive enforcement toward prediction, risk assessment, and crime prevention. Widely used technologies. Today, police agencies widely employ video surveillance systems, body-worn cameras, automated databases, license plate recognition systems, and digital forensic tools. Integrated information systems link incident records, suspect data, and court decisions, ensuring continuity and coordination between police, prosecutors, and judicial authorities. Digitalization and algorithmic decision support. In several countries, predictive analytic systems are used to assess risks and allocate resources. Algorithms help identify crime hotspots and optimize patrol deployment. However, their application requires strict oversight, as automated systems can amplify errors, embed bias, and pose risks to civil liberties if left unchecked. Emerging technologies and future challenges. The future of policing is closely tied to advances in artificial intelligence, biometrics, big data analytics, and specialized cyber units. The growing significance of digital crime and transnational threats demands new capabilities. The central challenge lies in integrating advanced technologies without undermining legal safeguards, transparency, and meaningful human oversight. Basic types of police systems. Community policing. Essence. The police as part of society. Core mission. Prevention and trust rather than coercion. In this model, the police maintain continuous contact with citizens, relying on cooperation, local presence, and preventive measures. Officers are often assigned to specific neighborhoods, become familiar with the community, and work as practical mediators between the state and the public. The use of force is treated as a last resort, not as a primary instrument of everyday policing. Key features: high levels of public trust, minimal militarization, prevention as a priority, transparency and accountability. Examples where the model is dominant: the United Kingdom, Japan, and the Scandinavian countries. Centralized state police. Essence. The police as an instrument of a unified state. Core mission. Uniform enforcement of the law. Here, the police system is subordinated to central authority and managed through a strict vertical chain of command. Decisions, standards, and operational priorities are set at the national level, ensuring coherence and control. This structure improves manageability and consistency, but it can reduce local autonomy and limit flexibility in responding to community-specific conditions. Key features: rigid hierarchy, national standards, high administrative control, limited local initiative. Examples: France, China. Federal and decentralized policing. Essence. The police as a reflection of regional governance. Core mission. Serving local communities within the rule of law. In this model, police powers are distributed among regions, states, or municipalities. The national level is either limited or focused on coordination and specialized functions. Decentralization increases adaptability to local realities and community needs, but it also complicates oversight, coordination, and the uniformity of standards and practices across the country. Key features: Many independent departments, differing standards, strong local authority, complex coordination. Examples: the United States, Germany. Militarized gendarmerie-style policing. Essence: policing between the military and civilian service. Core mission: territorial control and internal security. This model combines law enforcement functions with military discipline and organizational culture. It is often used to secure rural areas, strategic facilities, and to respond to large-scale disturbances. Command authority may be exercised by civilian leadership, military structures, or a mixed system, depending on the country's legal and historical framework. Key features: military ranks and statutes, high discipline, readiness for forceful operations, weaker integration with community life. Examples: the gendarmerie in France, the carabinieri in Italy. Political administrative, authoritarian, policing. Essence: the police as a mechanism of political control. Core mission: surveillance and suppression of perceived threats to the regime. In this model, the police perform not only public order functions but also political control. The boundary between criminal enforcement and political surveillance is blurred. Judicial oversight is weak or largely formal, and public accountability is minimal. As a result, policing is closely tied to executive power and may prioritize state security over civil liberties. Key features: priority of state security, expanded powers, weak civilian oversight, political dependence. Examples: historically authoritarian and totalitarian regimes of the 20th century. Today, states with limited separation of powers. Summary: no police system exists in a vacuum. The dominant type of policing always reflects the structure of the state, the level of trust within society, and the historical experience of power and governance. When society changes, policing changes with it, sometimes gradually, and sometimes through sharp institutional reforms. Conclusion: the role of police in society. The police are not an isolated structure. They are shaped by society and operate within its values, expectations, and institutional limits. Policing reflects how a community defines order, responsibility, and acceptable use of authority in everyday life. Where institutions are strong, the police often become an almost invisible part of daily routine. Their presence is felt more through reliability and predictable procedure than through constant displays of force, creating a background sense of security rather than tension. Where trust has been damaged, the police can become a symbol of conflict between state authority and citizens. In such environments, ordinary encounters may be interpreted through suspicion, and enforcement actions can trigger broader disputes about legitimacy and fairness. History demonstrates that durable public order is impossible without law, procedure, and effective control over the use of force. When coercive power is not regulated by clear rules and oversight, it tends to expand beyond its proper limits and undermine stability. The police can protect freedom, but only when they themselves are governed by rules. A rights-based police service depends on accountability, proportionality, and the consistent application of legal standards to every person, without exception. Understanding how policing is structured is a step toward informed citizenship and a more mature society. It helps people distinguish between lawful authority and abuse, evaluate reforms realistically, and participate responsibly in public discussions about safety and rights.
Hello everyone. I am very excited to share my new YouTube video with you, and I need your support to continue to bring quality and enriching content. If you enjoyed my content, please help me by like the video. It helps me reach more people and spread the message. Subscribe to the channel using the subscribe button below, so you don't miss any new update or video. Press the bell to receive notifications every time I upload new content. And if you would like to support me directly and help me create more content, you are welcome to join me on Patreon. Your support is significant for me and allows me to continue investing in creating quality and enjoyable content for you. Thank you so much for joining and watching. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. See you in the next video.